All right, welcome, Erika. Thank you for joining us today. I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background. So maybe like, what were you doing before you changed careers into UX UI design? How are you feeling? Things like that.
Well, actually, Wednesday, April 12th, today's 10 years since I graduated culinary school.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, for a very long time, I was working in restaurants, and it's a very different culture if you've never worked like in a kitchen with other cooks. Um, and basically, the only thing that really stopped me or made me think about it was when the pandemic happened. Because
Yeah.
no one was allowed to go outside, and restaurants were, at least where I was in New Jersey, restaurants were like the last thing to open back up. And
Yeah.
I did try, I tried to go back to restaurants, but everything was like to go, and I wasn't having fun with putting food in boxes. Like it just wasn't art anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you were working at a restaurant. So give us a little bit more info on the timeline. Like when, so pandemic started 2020.
Mhm.
At what point did you decide like maybe I need to find something else, right? Like maybe the boxes isn't it, right? Like we gotta figure something else out.
Yeah. So it definitely was the boxes because it was St.
Yeah.
Patrick's Day. And I
Okay.
was working in an Irish restaurant at the time, and it was still busy. I was crazy. It was crazy the amount of people that were still giving us business. But I remember being in the rush and being like, I think I have to figure something out.
Right.
And
And then what did you do? Like, did you go home and start like Googling? Did you start YouTube? Like how'd you figure out like what that next thing was going to be? Because I'm sure it's like it's great to be like, all right, I have to do something else. But then you turn into like, what am I gonna like, what is that something
yeah,
else, right?
it was really scary at first because um I went to culinary school, and it's an associate's degree, and I've never had like any kind of other formal higher education than that. So I was really scared about, oh, I'm gonna have to go back into debt or like borrow money for school. Nobody's gonna hire me without at least a bachelor's. And now they're saying, even a bachelor's doesn't get you a job some places. So, oof. Um, and I just Googled, I remember Googling one day, like skills to learn in 2020. And I had friends that are programmers, and I was like, what if I learn how to code? And I gave that a good 3-day run until I was like, this is not it. uh,
Okay, so you went the coding route, which I think is
yeah.
what people think like tech, tech culture, tech salaries, and they think I need to learn how to code, right?
Mhm.
So you tried it 3 whole days. That's honestly like props. This 3 whole days is great. So you were like, okay, this is not for me. How did you find out about what UX design is, right? Like a lot of people don't know what it is and have never heard of it.
Yeah, I had never heard of it until doing some homework. So I actually Googled what are some tech jobs I can work without coding, which I think is
Okay.
how a lot of people find UX. Um, but I learned more about like the creative side of tech, and there's things like graphic designers and animation and all that stuff. But I really liked how UX seemed like more of a thinking process,
Yeah.
because from my background, like putting together menus and coming up with specials, like you have to use like a business part of your brain, but you also get to at least express yourself in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were trying to like take the skills you've had, right, for all those years and like apply them to your new career, which is really smart. So you find UX, right? You're like tech jobs without coding, UX comes up. You're like, okay, I think this could be for me. Um, how did you figure out if it was for you or not? So a lot of people come to us and they're like, I'm just not sure. Like it seems like it might be for me, right? Kind of like where you're at in your story now, right? Like seems like it might be for me, but I'm not sure if I want to start learning or if I want to like spend time and money on this type of commitment.
Mhm.
So like what was that like light bulb moment? Or maybe there wasn't, right? Maybe you're just like, I'm just gonna try it, see if it works. But what was that like for you? Like, why were you like, yes, I'm going to start learning this?
I don't think that you're right. I don't think I had that light bulb moment. I looked in my network and I found out actually one of my cousins, I asked them about UX because I saw how closely it was with product design, and he's a product designer. And I was able to just have a regular family conversation with him. And I think just having that kind of support in my corner just helped me to be like, okay, I can go for this.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. So what came next? You were like, all right, I'm gonna do this. Did you, obviously you did Avocademy's foundation program. But what was it? Did you just like, was that the first thing you found and you did it, or did you do some research? Like how did you like decide how you were gonna learn design?
Okay, so I looked up what my education route could possibly be for this.
Mhm.
And like the coding, I gave it a shot a little bit longer this time, maybe like 2 weeks of trying to gather information myself. But I realized that I really liked at least some kind of structure throughout my day and like where to start and some guidance if I needed it.
Right.
So I did look up boot camps because I was like, I'm not going back to real college. Sorry, everybody. And I found other options along with Avocademy. Like there was, I think, Springboard and Career Foundry. There's a bunch out there. And I set up calls. And actually, I remember this so well. The day before I had the call with you to learn about Avocademy,
Yeah.
I had a call with another boot camp and they never showed up.
Not a good look.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
So we
Yeah.
can thank them.
Yeah. Um, okay, so you jumped on a call with me, right? It was because 2020 was definitely with me. We talked about the program. What made you decide to go with us? And it's okay if it's like price and how short it was, because I think that was our main differentiator. But why were you like, all right, yeah, I need this, like gotta sign up and get started?
Mm, so I knew that I was going to have to pay at least some money to get a skill. And I figure like between what I could afford and what I like thought that I should be able to invest and like, making choices about my future is like, okay, let me just do it. Like it wasn't really about UX so much as like the career path that I had chosen required me to do something different for it to make it a change.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. Cool. So around when did you start the foundations program? Like let's talk timelines. Like when did you start? How long did it take you to finish? And then did you do Career Jumpstart or not? And then how long did that take? Just walk us through like the next couple months, right?
Well, so like my story is a little different than I think most people for
Yeah.
Academy. So I started in August, I think, of 21, maybe 20 or
Okay.
21. I don't remember. Um, and it took me a really long time to finish. So long. I officially finished foundations and got the certificate in February.
Of 22 of last
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think when we first started Avocademy, we were, like our entire mission is flexibility, right? Like price point and flexibility to do it. Because when I did research around other boot camps, I was like, we have to be affordable because it's insane how much money these other boot camps cost. And we have to be able to allow people to do it whenever they can, right? Like someone that's working a full-time job, someone that's a mom, like someone that can't like sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day for 6 weeks straight,
Right.
has to be able to do it. So when we first started, we were super flexible. We were like not kicking anybody out. We were not like, we were trying to hold you accountable, right? I'm sure you got like a bunch of messages from us being like, so when are you going to finish, right? But back then we were letting people kind of work on it for a couple months if needed. Now I'm going to timestamp this video, April 2023. We extended the time. So we offer 16 weeks of unlimited mentorship. So that's almost 4 months. And so that people can, if they really want to work on it only 10 hours a week, they can take the 4 months to do it. If you want to finish quick, we have people that finish in 4 weeks, 5 weeks that are, doing it full time. But we've done that so that I'm sure with you taking, a couple months to do this, when you have to come back to keep working on it, it's kind of like, oh, where did I leave off? Right. And like kind of picking back up takes a little bit of extra effort. So we're trying to try and not, to make that smaller. So you finish foundations, you get your certification. You said February 22. Okay. So at that point you're like, okay, this took a while, but I'm here, right?
Yes.
What's your next step? Like, do you right away join Career Jumpstart, or do you try and now do the rest on your own? Like, what does that look like at that point? Are you like, I'm going to try and go find a job with this one project? Like, what was your train of thought at that point?
So I definitely did not try and go get a job.
Okay.
It was immediate where I was like, I need Career Jumpstart, because not only am I brand new and like just learned foundations or something, but I don't know anybody. Like, I need to make some friends. And I think the Avocademy community is awesome for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm always surprised at like how many connections you all make within the program. I don't know if you were at the speaker series we had recently. We had 2 past grads, both went to get their first jobs. One of them got their second job and then hired the friends from CJ as like the UI designer on the second job. So they ended up working together. And I was like, honestly, that's great. That's from like one DM in the community, right? Or one CJ project of crossing paths with someone. So yeah, the community is great. Still surprised about it. Okay, so you're like, all right, I'm doing CJ. You sign up for CJ. What did that look like for you? Did you do 1 project, 2, 3 projects? What did the project phase look like? And then once you started applying for jobs, how long did it take you to find a job?
So I definitely went with 3 projects. I think that the projects themselves got more interesting by each one for second and third. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
So once you started looking for a job, how long did it take?
It took me 4 months to find a job. I got hired. Well, I started the job in like end of October.
Started the job end of October 2022. So you've been at the job for 6-ish, 9 months, 7 months? I can't do math. 7 months, right? Nice. Okay. So 4 months to find a job. Tell us about that process. So I think a lot of people get to the job search phase and they think like, easy, I've done all the hard stuff. Now I just have to apply. And they don't realize like how hard it is to apply to that many jobs, not even that many jobs, but just to apply and get rejections. And it's kind of like, ooh, I got an interview. Ooh, I got a rejection, right? And you're like going down this roller coaster of emotions. Walk us through how you felt. Feel free to be completely honest.
Okay. So I was, of course, the wide-eyed, starry-eyed little newbie. Like, this is going to be great. I'm finally ready to like get in an office and start this new thing. I had a conversation with myself, and I was like, you don't need like the coolest job at like the biggest company, but like you need experience, because it's a lot of working in a kitchen is like that too. Like, you're never going to start in
the fancy shiny kitchen, right? Like the Michelin star restaurant.
Right. You gotta go through the bear first, like on Hulu.
Yeah.
And probably maybe a month into job searching, I was like, okay, this is fine. I feel like people with these types of jobs, like, they're usually searching for a while. It's not, I shouldn't expect it to be like the kitchen where I just walk in somewhere and they're like, okay, come back tomorrow. It just doesn't, the world doesn't work like this, actually. And then by month like 2.5, Oh, it was bad. I was feeling very bad because I just finished the move. I went from New Jersey to Houston, like I'm starting over. And it didn't really happen right away. So I
Yeah.
would be on the phone with my family and my friends all the time, complaining and venting. And
Yeah. But you did it, right? So I feel like, take us to like now looking back at it, it probably felt like really long, 4 months while
Mhm.
you were in it. But now you 8 months, of working as a designer, like does it feel like it was worth it to be where you're at now versus where you were, 2, 3 years ago?
Oh yeah, totally. I've just had so many more experiences and um like I never thought that I was going to change careers until 2020. If we had this conversation before that, I would have been like, no, I'm going to be a chef forever. And just learning about how that wasn't really sustainable for what I wanted and things like that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you get your job. Do you want to share what the job was? What were you doing? Are you still in the same job? Like walk us through now, like your career in UX.
Oh, also, I want to add for
Yeah.
people that may watch this, during my job search, I had an interview round, but the whole process was 5 interviews. And I found out after the 5th interview that I didn't get the job. And it was
Yeah.
soul crushing, but I made it. So, guys, it's okay. You're going to make it.
Yeah, when you get so close to that off, and the hard part is too, right? Like when you're that close, there's probably you and one other candidate, and they're like just hoping that person won't take the job for you to be, the backup or the other way around, right? Um, so I understand the pain. But you made it out, you got your job. Tell us a little bit more, like what does that look like? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What does your day-to-day look like?
So, I started as a contractor on 1099. Um, and I was just doing part time, like 20 hours a week. Um, because they just, as a startup, they didn't have real space for me yet because they were figuring stuff out. But I really like the company and what they do. Um, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it because NDA.
Yeah,
Um,
no worries. But you enjoyed it, right? You were working what, 20 hours. Um, you enjoyed the work you were doing. Are you still at that company?
I am still at that company, and I think my role has either my role changed a little bit, or I think I've just grown as a designer, which is pretty cool. Um, I get a little bit more important things to do now rather than like going through backlog and trying to catch us up. Um, I feel like I have more responsibility and they kind of trust me more to just not check up on me all the time.
Nice. Are you still working 20 hours or are you working 40 now?
No, so I became full-time in December because
Okay.
I got put on as a contractor. They were like, we might be able to convert you to full-time, but can you give us like 6 months? And
Okay.
then
Yeah.
it was way sooner than 6 months.
Nice. They probably saw that you were doing great and we're like, we gotta, lock this down
It
before
was
you leave
awesome.
somewhere
My
else.
my product
Yeah.
manager was like, "Can I talk to you?" And I'm like, "Oh no."
That's awesome. So you did 2 months of part-time, and then you went and you started working full-time. You're still at the company. Anything else you want to share about that experience, like imposter syndrome wise? How did you feel? Do you still feel that way? Like what, how did you deal with like starting a new job in like an industry that you had never worked a job in before?
So the imposter syndrome is really real. It still gets me sometimes. Oof. In the beginning, we didn't have as many designers as we do now. So it felt very isolated and very on my own. Like I had to figure stuff out for myself.
Yeah.
Um, so it made me feel like, oh, am I supposed to know these things because we don't have these people? Or am I working fast enough? Because the other designer I saw had like 8 open tickets and I had 2. I'm like, okay, wait, something might be wrong here. And then we got a a design lead. And after that happened, I really felt like I had kind of like a North Star, because
Right.
we get like one-on-one meetings and things and get to talk about like career development. And I've never had management like that. Like I've never had that kind of support in a job. So it definitely helps if you just work within your team and like try and like make relationships there. But coming from another career, it was really hard because I feel like I didn't really know how to behave in an office setting.
Right. Are you in person or you're remote?
So I'm mostly in person, but I can work from home sometimes if I want.
Okay. That's awesome. So congrats, right? You made the career change. You've been there for 8 months. Is there anything else you want to share kind of about this experience with folks that may be listening or watching this right now?
Yeah, I think that if they're doing research for trying to find out like what education is right for them, you're right. One of the reasons that I did like Avocademy was there were other people. Like it wasn't just tech people or people right out of school or people inclined towards that kind of work. It felt like, we're all just real regular people and we're trying to change something.
Right.
Um, and I feel like a lot of students that I've talked to, they come from other backgrounds, like, I don't know, healthcare, teaching, and which is great, but it's also still kind of that like environment that I'm not used to. And I
Right.
haven't really come across other people that might not have that background like me. But I just feel like, hey, like I'm proof, like you can get out.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. And actually, we do have other folks from like the food service, like retail type industry. That's not like what you would consider like, your traditional office job, even if it's like a teacher or healthcare worker, right? Not like in tech. But yeah, I love that you're sharing your story and you're kind of sharing that background so that maybe other people can see themselves in your story, right? And like be like, all right, she did it, like I can do it too.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I'd love to close out with just one last question.
Yeah, of course.
Um, if you had one piece of advice for someone that is considering a career change, what would that piece of advice be? Like, what would you have wanted to hear before you kind of took the leap and started your change into design?
If I had a piece of advice before they started looking.
Before they started, yeah, not started looking, but they were, they're considering UX and they're just like not 100% sure yet.
Okay, so if you're thinking of doing something and you're not 100% sure, something that really helped me was in 5 years, you're going to be 5 years older anyway. So what are you going to have done during those 5 years? So
Right.
whether you make a change or not, time is still going on and you have control of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your story. Really, really appreciate it. Wish you the best, in your rest of your career. I know I see you active in the CJ alumni channel, so I know we'll definitely be talking again. But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks, Marco.